Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Another Sunday afternoon, another AP poll top 25 to break down with a little bit more of a nuance, right? We got to talk about the rankings that are in front of us. How much is the playoff committee going to mirror what we see in the AP poll? Because the couple of questions that jump out to me right off the bat that I want to get into is number one, what do we do with the Big 12? Yeah, I think Texas Tech is clearly pulling away from the pack. And I think the second part of this is that I don't know if there's a second Big 12 team that I deem as a college football playoff team. I think Texas Tech's going to be a legitimate threat in the playoffs. I'm just not sure if there's another team that I would like to see get in. We got to talk about the chaos in the ACC as well. Plenty of storylines, man. Plenty of frauds, by the way, that are still in the top 25 that I want to get into before we do. And as always, man, best part about this episode, y'all let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. By far the best episode to do every single Sunday. And the amount of support's been amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, the other thing that I want to know, because I've been reading the comments, look, there are so many different ways to evaluate these conferences and evaluate these teams, evaluate these resumes. Y'all let it fly. We ain't going to agree on everything. And if y'all think the boys are wrong, let us hear it in the comment section. Dylan, we'll put you on the tee box first. In terms of what we saw on Saturday or over the weekend, I should say, what was the biggest statement that was made here?
Yeah, and this wasn't a crazy Saturday. I don't think we learned a ton. I think we obviously learned that I don't think the Big 12 is getting two teams in, and that's probably where I'll just start. Like BYU, I am very interested to see where the College Football Playoff Committee ranks them. I think like hanging around at 12 to me, that's a great.
Yeah.
I do not think they're the 12th best team in the country. They've been another team that's felt like they've skated by some wins against bad teams, so their record looks good. I don't find that to be a particularly great football team. I really hope the CFP committee or CFP, I should say, committee really takes a look at that and puts them a little further down.
Very interested to see BYU because, look, there's a lot that I like. I thought that BYU defense was – I mean, that is a legitimately good defense.
But it's also not the greatest Texas Tech offense in the history of the world either.
Yeah, that could be fair. I mean, Barrett Morton is clearly not 100%. My biggest takeaway from that game is, like, stock up on Texas Tech. But when you get beat as bad as BYU got beat, and you can look at the box score, and look, the box score is going to be a little bit more generous to BYU than it probably should be because that game was, Dill, it never felt like BYU had a chance to win that football game. Like right from the jump. They were really
beating. I agree with you. Like BYU didn't look like they were really better in any facet of
it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I even go to a team like Miami at 16 and say, yes, they have two losses that are ugly, but in those games, arguably were the better team at some points. They also have some wins like Notre Dame that they can point to and say, BYU won loss. But at certain points, like, it just did not look like a top 12 team in the country versus a Miami team that look inexcusable losses, but they look like the better team. I'm with you. I'm interested to see how the committee approaches BYU. How far does BYU drop after losing the way they did to Texas Tech?
Because I'm hoping they kind of like they nuke them a little bit, for lack of better terms. Because I really don't love the idea that they hang around there. And even like a 3-loss Oklahoma to me should probably get in over BYU. And I don't really care what happens unless BYU really turns it on and then like beats Texas Tech in the Big 12, for example.
Yeah,
I just look like you can't be playing tight games with really bad teams. Like Colorado's not a great team. I don't love like a 24-21 win over that. It's just to me,
even the win against Utah, they were outgained by over 100 yards. Like the BYU has been skating by, and it's the tale old ass time, right? Like, yes, you want to look at resumes and you want to try to build the resumes, but when you're comparing these teams from different conferences, there's got to be a certain level of eyeball test that that has to happen too. Eyeball test, like BYU or a 3-loss Oklahoma or 2-loss Miami. I'm taking Oklahoma and Miami on neutral sites. And look, I'm not saying necessarily that it just power ranks is the right way to go about it, but you have to have some sort of eyeball test in that conversation too. I'll give you the biggest statement that I thought was made. Georgia, 5. And I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable having them at 5 this week. Look, Georgia's been ranked 5 for the last couple of weeks, and they've never felt like the 5th best team. We've never seen that version of Georgia. And I know it was Mississippi State. And I'll say this, though. Mississippi State's been banging with a lot of teams in the SEC this year. Georgia ran the football for 300 yards. Those linebackers are absolutely hunting. Gunnar Stockton continues to be one of the more reliable quarterbacks in the SEC this year. Am I getting up here?
Big thing, I think they're finding their rotation on defense, especially in the back end. Like Daniel Harris, like you go back and look at some of the early games and the struggles he had, really, really weak and he's kind of gotten phased out a little bit in favor of some other guys. I do think there's an element of Georgia starting to find their personnel groupings, and it took a little longer, and they had a lot of guys to replace. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but I do think they're starting to find out what they're going to be. Probably not going to be a great defense, but let's give Mike Bobo his credit. He's got that offense.
Yeah. A little bit and again, I thought that was the best the defense has looked also. So look, I never really argued with Georgia being 5. My argument was more they just don't feel like the 5th best team in the country. And it's only one game, and you want to see it against Texas next weekend. But I'll say this, Georgia, the eyeball test finally felt right with Georgia being at 5.
I'll give you another statement. Did Texas A&M not make a statement that they're the second best team in the country? And again, it's kind of academic at the end of the day, but you talk about just wall-to-wall control of football games. Texas A&M's been in one football game pretty much, and that is that Notre Dame game. Other than that, they've been just really controlling football games, only rivaled in the way that Ohio State has, because Ohio State really hasn't played a particularly close game. Even that Texas game, I'd never felt like Ohio State was going to lose it. To me, A&M, I haven't really felt like they've been in a game that they could lose since that Notre Dame game. In Iowa or Indiana, I should say, I think they're showing like a recipe of a challenge that can be posed against them, and that's if your defensive line can really get after them. That's 2 games now we've seen. It's doable at least. Like where A&M, I look at like where do you exactly attack this team? How do you really hurt them? We haven't really seen that.
So here's the thing I'll push back. You're making it more of an Indiana thing than I would like you to make it.
No, I don't think that's it. I'm saying where does Texas A&M look like they can be really hurt? Like
then I'm with you, right? Then I'm with you because you look at Texas A&M. That was a statement, man. And look, I get that Missouri had a true freshman quarterback making his first career start. Like I get that. That Missouri defense is legit, man. It is very legit. Texas A&M went on the road, 464 total yards, 38 points, averaging 6.8 yards per play. This team can win in a lot of different ways. Marcel Reed is playing very, very good football. They arguably, I mean, how many wide receiver duos are you taking over Casey and Mario Craver in the country? And that Texas A&M defense continues to be. Here's the thing with Texas A&M's defense, and a lot of really good teams aren't doing this well. Situational defense, man. Like really good in the red zone, really good on third downs. There are a lot of teams that are good football teams that situationally stink. Like a team like Auburn's the perfect example. Florida, perfect example. Texas A&M situationally really damn good. Look, I ain't going to bang the table for it. All I'm saying is that Texas A&M is a not just playoff team, national championship threat. What do you think the committee does with Oregon?
I am getting a little curious because Oregon hasn't been able to like thump teams in the way that I almost think you want to. Like again, even that Wisconsin game, and granted, there's been some bad weather, which I do think makes
bad weather in both those games. Yeah,
teams up. Oh yeah, no, I know, but like still, Oregon to me, you probably want to see them start handling games a little bit more than they have been. So I am curious. And Texas Tech was ranked above them. I'm not sure I agree with that by the committee. I should point out. But I'm not going to make a case for Oregon being much higher than 7. I mean,
I don't think so.
I would be totally opposed to seeing. I think they're really tight with Texas Tech and Notre Dame. I think those are really there's not a ton of separation.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, I think to me I'm kind of almost going back to like that top 3, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Oregon is then that second.
Do you think Oregon's comfortably in that 4, 5, 6 kind of?
Yeah, and here's the thing with Oregon that I would stress is that I do think the number one, man, I know what the scoreboard says. but I also just saw Oregon beat Iowa badly at Iowa's game. Right? They went out, ran the football better. They stopped the run better. The throw, you couldn't really throw the football in the weather that they had, and Oregon just said, "Screw it, we'll play Big Ten football with you." And they let Iowa hang around more than
you
they
talk
should.
about one thing, situational football. Oregon needs to be much better. So, not great at skills like on short yardage, not great in their throwing a pick in the red zone,
not finishing drives. Yeah.
So Oregon, to me, like we talk about some of these other teams, like in A&M and Indiana, even in Ole Miss, probably I'd put in there. Georgia certainly would put in there.
But here's the thing that I'll say about Oregon that I think is almost the difference between an Oregon and Ole Miss. If Oregon gets right, if Oregon plays their best football, they have a bona fide chance to win a national championship. I truly believe that it's a young football team that's dealing with some injuries. If they get healthy, well, I mean, Dill, one, he didn't have Corey Moore, he didn't have Kenyon Sadiq. Also, Evan Stewart might come back for Oregon as well. If Oregon gets healthy and starts playing clean football, complete football, there's a gear that they can get to that not a lot of other teams across the country can get to. Where do you want to go? Do you want to talk Miami at 16?
Do you just talk the ACC in general? Because that's an interest. I'm very curious now where, are they going to have an at-large bid? That's going to be the question. Because their ACC,
if they do get an at-large bid, it will be Miami. Because I do not think Miami is going to make the conference. At least they would need.
They need a lot.
Dude, the ACC is go try to formulate all the tie-break scenarios you have in that conference. It is nearly impossible to do.
It's so funny. We thought ACC would basically be two teams.
Dry.
And now it's gone the complete opposite.
And it's not the teams you would expect. As Clemson, Miami, I said this all summer long. They're just on a collision course for the ACC championship game. Neither of them are even going to make it to Charlotte. Wild. Now, I think Miami's got the best shot I think Miami's really the only at-large bid you'll get because they do have that win against Notre Dame. And as Notre Dame continues to win, which we think they will, they don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. Notre Dame very well could wind up as a, top 8, maybe top 7 team in the country when it's time to slot these teams in. And Miami has a win over them. Here's the question, though. Does the committee want to reward Miami? And this is personal take for me. And I ain't going to, here's the thing with Miami, is I ain't going to bang the table for them to get in the playoffs because you can't lose to SMU, you can't lose to Louisville.
You got to earn your way in. 100%.
I agree.
But I know you can take the eyeball testing, but your resume.
No, but let me get this out because this to me is important. I've been thinking about this a lot. You have to reward a team like Miami for winning that game week 1 because if you don't, we ain't gonna get those games no more, right? I mean, what if Miami's not going to get rewarded for that win late? I mean, then why would they play those games anymore, right? And so I would like to see.
I think they are kind of being rewarded for it. I mean, if you look at that resume minus the Notre Dame win, we probably aren't talking about a top 25 team.
Okay, that could be fair. Maybe more rewarded. I think. I guess here's my take.
Playoff time. That's certainly a fair take. If Notre Dame's sitting there at 9.
No. Here's what I think you do. Here's what I think you do is that I'd rather give teams the playoff spots that have shown me they've won playoff caliber games. Whereas you go back to SMU in Indiana last year, it was you have a playoff resume because you haven't really lost many games. But where's the win that showed us that you're a playoff team? Neither of them had those wins, and both of them got boat raced in the playoffs. Not kind of hindsight 2020, a team like Ole Miss or a team like Alabama, they had those playoff wins that they could point to, and I'll promise you this, they would have been more competitive in the playoffs. I'm kind of taking the stance. I feel more comfortable about it as I'm talking about it, that look, if you have playoff wins on your schedule that you can point to, that freaking should matter more than I feel like it does. I feel like we're still rewarding teams for having a pretty record when maybe they don't have the wins to back it up. Because I look at a team like Utah, Dill, or I look at a team like Virginia. Like, where are those wins? Where are those wins? Like, Florida State don't count as a win for Virginia. Utah had an impressive win at home against Cincinnati. Outside of that, and Cincinnati all of a sudden catapults back in the top 25, and they were on bye last week. I don't know. I don't know. And I'm not saying Virginia, Utah are bad teams, but I'm also saying like they don't have any wins that they can point to and say, yep, that shows the committee that we're a playoff team. Miami does. All right, call your shot. Team that's going to rise up there. It still has to be. How about this one, Dale? USC. Do you think
that Oregon game I no longer look at as a unwinnable game? And I do think Oregon presents some issues because I think they're so much better probably on the lines of scrimmage than this USC team. But Oregon isn't playing and dominating teams the way that makes me think they can't go or USC can't go beat them.
I'll say this. There's like a slow buildup for USC. They played Northwestern Friday night. That is a classic Big Ten team that wants to run the football, and USC responded well in the second half. Guess who they play this weekend? Play the Iowa Hawkeyes. Gave Oregon everything they could handle. Who's another team that's going to test your quote-unquote manhood up front, being able to stop the run. Well, if USC passes that test, then I'll start buying some stock going into that Oregon game. They got to show me they can beat Iowa first because, look, Oregon's got the best rushing attack in the country. Flat out. That's just the truth. USC's got to show me they have the ability to deal with that rushing attack before
I'm kind of with you. Like, I think like what Iowa or Illinois, was able to do against USC, that is my concern for USC. Like, just can they get negative plays? Can they do something to knock Iowa off schedule a little bit? Because we've seen some moments where USC's really struggled to do that at times. Like they were able to do it against Michigan, and you saw how successful they can be.
Yeah.
But we've also seen some other games where it's like very frustrating watching. Like, we just get a negative play and keep this team a little bit off schedule.
So Michigan remains that team where it's just like, what's the Ohio State game going to look like? And we'll see. And I will say this. If Ohio State continues to struggle to run the football at times, that could be an interesting game. Here's the ultimate chaos team.
An interesting game either way. It's
agreed. Pitt. They play Notre Dame. They also play Miami at the end of the year. No, like it's just like they're the ultimate chaos.
What does Miami want from that game? I really want to know.
Right? Because do you want what I think
it's Miami's path into the playoffs. That's fundamentally. I think you gotta want Pitt to win out, except for Miami.
I mean, here's the thing: if Pitt does beat Notre Dame, Notre Dame's out of the playoffs, right? Yep. Period. And
Miami can notch a big time win.
Yeah, and then Pitt jumps up to a top 15 team in the country with that win. And then Miami gets a chance to notch that win at the end of the year. That Pitt team, man,
I don't find it super likely. Notre Dame, they're rolling a little bit.
Yeah, me neither. We'll see. Hey, look, I'm more excited to see what the playoff rankings are. I'm very excited to see what the committee does with BYU and with the Big Ten in general after what we saw with Texas Tech. We'll pause it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.